Hi, and welcome to How Humans Heal. I'm Dr. Doni Wilson, and today I want to introduce you to Carrie Rowan. She is a certified mindset coach. She's also an international best-selling author and an award-winning singer and songwriter. Thank you so much for joining me today, Carrie.
Thank you for having me on, Dr. Donnie. It's super excited to be here.
Of course, and I know that you are so always been so interested in learning new tools and techniques for helping people heal, and that you are here to share about that with us today, as well as about your book where you talk about that more. Your book is the Tell a New Story: 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. So we definitely want to hear about that, but please start by telling us more about you. Like, how did you get going in this direction in your life?
Sure. Well, I've always sort of been kind of a self help junkie, if you will, ever since I was a little kid. And I just remember my parents having all these tapes around. They were in Amway years ago. So they had all these Zig Ziglar and, all the greats back then. And as a kid, I would take those and listen to those. I don't know. I was just very drawn to that. And I remember seeing my first Wayne Dyer book in their bedroom, Erroneous Zone. So I've always been exposed to this in my life, and I just ate it up. It just became my thing. Um, so I say in my book, I think I was born sunny side up. So I've always had this. I think it's my superpower to look for what's good and
Mhm.
find the good thing, even when life isn't great. So, but through taking all that information, I actually went right out of college into the corporate world. I was in professional sales for 10 years and climbed the ladder and did all the things I thought I wanted to do. And I got to the top. I had 8 people or so reporting to me, and I was like, "Oh, is this all it really is?" And so I took that leap off the ladder, and I landed on my piano bench, and I went back to what I did as a kid, right? My passion, which was music, and I used to put on musicals with the neighborhood kids. I don't know why I did that. It was just what I did. So I find I love helping people find their passions, right? Because when we look back at what we did as kids, that's usually what we were just innately passionate about. So luckily, I was able to go back to my music, and I put out 4 CDs, and I had some great success with it. And I also perform music for little kids, the smaller kids, which is a beautiful audience to play for because they love everything. They cry when you leave, but aside from that, it's really great. So all of this sort of culminated, and it's all part of my book. I feel like my book was like the next natural step for me. um, all this information and the studying that I had done in natural medicine, holistic medicine. I used to work for New England's largest holistic magazine for 3 years. So I got to interview and talk to a lot of alternative type practitioners. And I myself am a huge proponent of functional medicine and I've dragged my kids and my husband there for years before anybody really knew a whole lot about it. So the book is really a culmination of all my teachings. And, storytelling is something that we do and it's been passed down through generations. It's one of the oldest forms of communicating, right? And so is singing. Singing is just 3-minute songs and stories that we tell. So through all this, I wrote my book, and my book is really, it's my deepest personal stories and tragedies, good times, everything that happened to me in my life, all those things that we wish didn't happen in our lives, but they do. What do you do with that? And
Mm.
so by sharing my stories, it's really a reflection for my readers so that they can see here's how I got over my stories and I healed from them, and here's how you can do the same thing. So it's powerful.
Now, when you mention like the stories, because I like how you really say it in a way that's kind of like very accepting of the experiences that we have. But sometimes, I'm assuming sometimes those were could be something traumatic for a person, right? Or
Mhm.
something really difficult, or a betrayal, or a loss. Is that the kind of stories that you're also helping people tell?
Absolutely. Those are the stories that I'm talking about. But what I find in my work is so interesting because we do need to share those stories. We do need to get them out. But what I found was, and the tagline of my book is the 5 simple steps to help you release the negative stories so that you can live with more joy, because that's what we're here for, right? So by finding out what those stories, it wasn't necessarily the things that happened to us, right? That's outside of our locus of control. I can't change what happened. The only thing I can change, as we were talking about, is my mind or the story I tell about it. And when I started studying that and realizing my stories were making me feel even worse about what already happened, which was bad enough. So then when we keep repeating these stories, right, they're like stuck on repeat, dating myself, like an album when the needle used to get stuck in the groove, you had to get a little tap. Um, that's what happens with our stories. And a lot of times we don't even realize there's those stories that are holding us back from what we want in life.
I think that's a really it's a really good point. Like we might be just seeing it even in our physical health or in maybe not accomplishing certain goals that we think we want to accomplish and we're like, "Why is this happening to me?" And sometimes we don't realize that there's kind of like a record on repeat that needs the we need to put attention and figure out how to release it, how to is that what you find is when people I mean, that's what I've learned too, but I'm curious, is it when people tell their story, it somehow releases it or shifts it?
Sure, absolutely. And especially, the type of stories, there's a lot of different types of stories we tell. And I talk a lot about the different types of stories, the woulda, shoulda, coulda story or the oh, if only story, and all these little types of shame stories. Shame stories are a beautiful example of what you're saying. Because those shame stories, they need to come out. Those are the little tiny insidious ones that we tell ourselves all the time. The negative things. You're so dumb. You'll never get it right. Somebody said that once and it just stuck in our head, right? We probably created that story before we were 7 years old. And so we keep those are the kind of stories that are really bad for us to keep repeating and do affect our mind, body, and spirit. And that's what I love to do is help people capture those stories, the ones that make you feel worse than you already felt about what happened. Because stories contain a lot of our negative beliefs and our limiting beliefs and things that we picked up a long time ago in our life.
It's so powerful. Is how is it that you if you can give us a little sense of it, how do you help people to do that? How do they start by writing about it, speaking about it? How do they start to because I think someone people listening might be like, "How can I even figure out what my stories are?"
Yeah, that's a really great question. I talk about in the book. The first thing I tell my clients, you got to get a pretty little notebook, cute little story catcher. It's called a story catcher notebook. And once you become aware of those stories, you start writing them down. And the coolest thing that I love about this work is that once people become aware of these stories, you can't go back. You'll start telling a story midstream. So catching them and realizing that, hey, you know what? If this is resonating with you, I think I have some stories in there, which most people do, that are really holding me back. I want to find out what they are. So setting that intention, right? And then I came up with an acronym for the word story, SDORY. It's 5 steps. Those are my 5 steps based on that. So you can't forget it. It's easy. And I take you through those 5 steps to really help you go through each step. And as you progress, those stories just start to change themselves because you get so excited that you realize, wow, this has been holding me back. I don't want to keep telling this. And you'll be mid-story in a song, or in a song too, but even in a story, and you'll pull that back. You'll start pulling your own stories back, and as we know, that's change right there when you can catch yourself in the middle of that.
Because that's really true. Like if we think about it, it's what's happening each moment in our lives and each week, each year is essentially on a repeat of what we experienced in the past until we get enough awareness to realize, hey, that's not what I want to repeat again. How do I get enough awareness to shift it so that I can create a different pattern going forward? It's really something. Do you have people put their stories to song sometimes?
That's funny. I always think of I teach people to release that. And, a lot of times I will use music in my coaching, especially if somebody's very musical or they just love music. It doesn't matter if they play an instrument or not. But yes, creation like that, creating, journaling, writing stuff down, poetry, all that creative work gets us out of our head and into our creative and really back into our body, which completely helps to do that. So yeah, whatever resonates with people. I'd love to just be open and I'm super insightful into what people need and what resonates with them. And I love coming up with creating things like that for people, coming up with a theme song that they play for themselves every morning, like a little mantra that they like. So it's super fun work too. I feel blessed I get to do this with people to help them change.
Do you usually work with people one on one or how are you usually interacting with them?
Well, that's a great question. I love to do classes because I feel like the group synergy that gets created in there is super powerful. And a lot of change happens, with these women. It's mostly women that join the class So I offer every modality because everybody's different. Some people like that one-on-one attention, and so I can do that with them. Or if they want to be part of the group and they each have an accountability partner, which is really powerful. So they're learning when they're with me and I do live coaching, it's not pre-recorded. And then they have a partner that they can share stories with that they might not want to share in front of the whole class. But it's a very safe container for people to come and they love the connections that are made throughout those classes. So that's another nice way. And I also go to corporations and I'll do a talk on, teaching people meditation or whatever they need to really help people. So there's a lot of different levels. And when I do my big talk, I have my guitar on me and I sing and everybody sings with me. And it's part of the healing process. Music is so powerful.
Wait, so are some of those classes online or mostly in person?
They're mostly online right now. There's Zoom classes online, but I might be doing some locally here in person, which is nice. People love that in person. I find that people are asking for that more often. So I have a couple different wellness centers that I work with and I teach at their facilities.
Now, I know you're also trained as a Reiki master, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that. But I'm very intrigued by because Reiki has to do with working on balancing energies. And I really am curious at how that interrelates with the storytelling.
Absolutely. Well, I feel like, it's all related, right? Because it's all just happening right up here. And I love to give people tools that they can be proactive about managing their stress. And I think that's really in line with what you do as well. So, whether it's Reiki or we're doing EFT tapping, or I'm showing them some Donna Eden energy pumping to move the energy around in their body, it's also related, but I love to be proactive about it. So if you can have yourself a morning practice, say a morning ritual that you do, and maybe it includes a little energy medicine or doing I think the power of self healing with Reiki is super powerful. But what you're basically doing is you're balancing your body and then the mind will follow, right? So if we're waking up, feeling some gratitude, coming up with a plan for ourselves, and then doing something physical that gets us in that space, we're way better able to handle that stress. Because let's face it, the stuff's going to hit the fan at some point today. It always does.
Stress is
So,
going to happen. So we better be ready for it, right?
exactly. And that's okay. It's not a shame to be stressed, but you don't want to stay stressed, right? Because then you get in that you're just constantly in fight or flight, and that's bad for our adrenals and everything. But so to be proactive, that's really what I try to teach people and whatever resonates with them. I love Reiki. I do Reiki on everybody in my family distance, but I'm not a table healer. People don't come in. I don't do that. But is it part of what I do? You betcha. And did I used to always, practice that and put energy medicine out with kids? Absolutely. It's all just part of the energy field that we're sending out there. So,
Yeah.
um, but really staying proactive is really kind of one of my things I like to teach people how to do.
Well, and I find that it's like as much as we can even become aware of stress and how it affects us, it's not so natural to choose these activities that you're mentioning. Anything even from singing or journaling or, even dancing for that matter. We tend to like hold ourselves back from giving ourselves those things that can help us. So I love that you're encouraging people and saying, "Hey, this can just be like it comes across to me like you're saying, "Hey, this is just be part of your daily life activities." That's how it is for you, it sounds like.
Absolutely. A dance party for one, these are all things that these little things. And I love what you just said because I think that's so true. People hold back. People don't want to allow themselves that freedom of expression, yet we're all really longing for it, aren't we?
Yeah.
We need to be creative. Creative is when that energy is flowing through our body. I mean, it doesn't get any more connected to the whole universe. So I love giving people creative exercise because they don't give themselves the license or permission to, and I do. We're going to have some fun here. It's not all serious. Um, and let's just let ourselves be kids again. Let's color, let's dance, let's do whatever creative activity it takes for us to feel in the flow and in our bodies. We spend so much time up here worrying about everything. And let's bring it down here into our heart and let's celebrate who we are as humans with some joy.
Yeah, it's so powerful and really you're bringing to us what a musician experiences and a songwriter, you're experiencing the feeling, putting it into words and then sharing it with others through music. And you're saying, "Hey, this isn't just for the musician. Everybody can access the healing capacity of this tool."
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so much power in being able to write down what we feel, because in my songs for many, many years, I wrote about the stuff I couldn't really share. The deepest, deepest feelings, but you can put that beautifully to words in a poem and something that rhymes and has cadence and rhythm. And now we're gonna add some beautiful music and it's gorgeous. And you could be saying the most heart-wrenching thing in the world. And it's cathartic for me and it's cathartic for anybody that listens to it. So yes, all of this did stem from all of these experiences that I had in life that brought me right here to this point.
That's really cool. It's really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us and with the world with the work that you're doing. It's so beautiful, So people when people want to access your book, what is it? I'm assuming they can get it at Amazon, or where's the best place to find it?
Absolutely, didn't get it on Amazon. I just put my Audible book up, at the end of the summer, which was so fun to do. I love Audible. So yeah, they can go there if they wanna find the link on my website at carrierowan.com. That's CarrieRowan.com, and you can find my podcast there as well.
Yeah, I see your podcast. Look for the good, which is what you were saying that earlier. You came out sunny side up, right? So
Exactly. Exactly. And I love to teach that to people because, as you know, our brains are so beautifully predisposed to look for what's wrong because that's what kept us safe all these years, right? But we need a software upgrade because we've never had one. So in order to do that, we have to retrain our brains. We have to start training them to look for the good, right? That RAS system that we have in there.
yeah.
We've got to teach it what is important to us. And when we start looking and noticing what's important, that starts to grow. And it's funny, a lot of times I'll mention that to somebody as a practice, and they just, oh, that's too easy. No, I know gratitude. It's the funniest thing because people think they practice it because, of course, I'm happy when something good happens, right? Isn't that gratitude? And that's really not what it is. It's much more intentional than that.
Yeah, it's true. And I write about this in my book too, the Master Your Stress Reset Your Health book, because I think it's really helpful for people to understand the science and the physiology behind this isn't just something that sounds good, or because sometimes people feel like that's almost like faking it or dismissive or something, but it's actually the science behind it shows that, like, the things you're mentioning, say gratitude. We know the vibration of gratitude is way higher vibration than other states of being, and that we can, if we choose that, if we choose gratitude on purpose, to put our focus on that could be very healing for our bodies in many ways, including release of oxytocin, right? Or like you were just saying, if we focus, I mean, as you were mentioning meditation, I mean, I think that meditation and mindfulness in general can be such a tool for us to learn how to have more awareness in the moment, and then also to train our brains how to focus on what we want them to focus on, right? And then we can
Mhm.
start to use that tool more often, whether it's with meditation or biofeedback or guided imagery, and there's so much science behind that. So tell us more how you use that in your work.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, in my book, I think I mentioned you before, it's interactive. So for each of those 5 steps, I have a meditation that I created. And here's the really cool thing about it. So for each of the steps, because my book is interactive, there's a QR code right at the right moment when you
Mhm.
need to hear that meditation. So it's super powerful. I mean, I love meditation. It's me speaking, it's a guided meditation. There's so many different types of meditation. And I
Right.
just tell people to just find one that works for you because you're going to get all those beautiful benefits as we know that meditation offers us. But I feel like the greatest thing is like I was saying before about being proactive, right? When you're meditating every day, just like stress is cumulative and you're filling up that emotional backpack, if you will, until like it just about explodes if you don't do something about it. The good stuff is meditation is cumulative as well. So you're building these reserves up, right? And at those moments that the stuff's hitting the fan, you have this extra reserve. I mean, I love to explain it as like this beautiful warm wave that you have of calm that lives inside of you. And you can call on that more often the more often you meditate, right?
It gets so much easier. It's right there because you've been practicing it and you just know exactly how to go to it. So at first, so someone listening, if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to integrate this into my schedule or my day, just know that you can start little by little, and then it starts to become easier and part of your just usual habit, and you can just go right to it. Carrie, do you mind sharing with us the what are the 5 steps?
Oh, absolutely. So the 5 steps are, based on the acronym STORY, STROS. So the first one is S, which is your state of mind, right? Learning how to manage your state of mind so it's not managing you. And again, instead of chasing state of mind or mindset, we get out of it ahead of it early in the day. And then the second step is T, your true intention. Understanding that all of our stories have an intention. There is a reason that we're telling that story. And if we can look a little bit deeper behind it, sometimes we don't always want to admit it's not a really great intention. It's not as pure as we'd like it to be, and that's okay. And I talk about what your different intentions might be, but all stories serve a noble purpose. And I always tell people, yeah, that to have a lot of self compassion when you do this work. And then the O is outcome. Begin with the end in mind, right? We don't realize that the outcome of our stories, how our stories are affecting everybody around us, the energy we're putting out there. We don't want to be that person that's telling a story and the whole room energy just kind of drops to the floor. So starting to become aware of that and being like a story detective, if you will, and seeing how your stories are bouncing off of other people gives you a lot of insight into what they're doing to yourself as well. And then the R of that is the reframe. We all love the reframe. That's looking for the good, right? Like usually our messiest, ugliest stories that I might come and say, oh, this is my worst story. I love when people bring me their worst story because I know deep inside that worst story is actually their greatest strength. Their worst story is usually their biggest comeback story. So we talk a lot about that in the book. And then your why. The why is you had the power all along, right? We have the power within us. We were born with it. We just forgot about it. You know, that creativity and it just gets all strangled out of us when we're younger. And so owning that power and realizing, hey, I have the power to change the only thing I could change anyways, which is my mind. And I had that all along. So we celebrate taking your power back and relearning not to give it all away when you should be keeping it for yourself and to share it with the ones that you love.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I find some of the biggest transformations with my patients is when they realize that like, oh my gosh, I was because I think a lot of this is stemming from, as you mentioned, like what we're taught in childhood or sometimes things we heard in childhood, and then we that it just continues on forward, and we end up feeling like we're supposed to be giving to others first and being, sometimes over welcoming or over giving, instead of kind of saying, hey, this is me, this is my body, I'm going to take care of it. Yes, I want to be feeling well enough to be able to help others and give to others, but I have to also make sure that I'm taking care of my energy and my body, right, and my space. And so just some we have to sometimes learn that as adults.
Absolutely. It's so true. That whole self care thing. Because it used to be kind of glamorous to be like the martyrish, right? And that's another generation, but that gets handed down to us. And especially I feel like as women, we're always we're the caretakers, we're taking care of everybody else. But, the whole thing about the oxygen mask, gotta go on us first. We gotta take care of us first so that we can show up better for everybody else that we care for, right?
And it might seem counterintuitive at first, because all things do when it's kind of new information or a new perspective on things. So don't be surprised if at first you're like, how can I even make that flip happen in my life, in my world. But the more you kind of like just let it, let it just at first just listen, and then right, just kind of like
Hmm.
start down this path, and little by little, you'll start to see these subtle shifts in this direction. That's what I find anyway. And then you start to go, oh, okay, this is what it looks like to little by little be taking my life back, my body back, my attention back, my focus back to myself, and be the one choosing, because even if we're not actively choosing, the choice is being made without us being part of it otherwise.
It's so true. And I love what you said, those tiny little steps, because people think, oh, that's too small. It's not going to make a difference. Well, actually, it is. Those small little steps, that intention that you're setting, the little positive things you're doing for yourself, those are the things that will accumulate and cause huge changes in your life, shifts, major shifts. And you're going to look back and go, wow. That just started with a small little morning routine, or I just started meditating 5 minutes a day, and look where I am. It's transformed my life in so many ways. So I love that. I just, and it makes it seem so doable because it is doable. I think people get overwhelmed, which is why I always talk about this time of year, why New Year's resolutions don't work because they're they're just it's just not a conventional way to do it. It's an old-fashioned way to look at things when really we wanna look at small little daily steps, tiny little bites that I can take every single day to lead me down the path of where I really wanna be.
It's beautiful. Oh my gosh, thanks again so much for sharing with all of us. Is there anything else you want people to know or to be able to get in contact with you? If what would you say is the people who usually reach out to you, what does that look like? What are they dealing with? What are they looking for?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. Well, like you, people are stressed out. They're so stressed out. They feel overwhelmed. They're anxious about the future and they're worried about the past and what happened. And they're spending all their time up here in their heads. And it's usually women that I work with. And I just like to, I always think of things in terms of music because that's the way my brain works. So, I work with people who want more from life. You know you're stuck. You know you want more. You know you're not feeling your best. You want to feel better every single day. And I love showing people how to feel better every single day. So, I take people who go from singing a sad song to humming a happy song, finding their voice and skipping along their life, right? Isn't that how we want to do it? With joy as the soundtrack of life.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Joy as the soundtrack of your life. Beautiful. Oh
Thank
my gosh.
you.
It's so great to meet you and get to chat with you, Carrie. Thank you so much. And I'll definitely share information about your book and your website with this video so everybody can, if you check this out with the video, you can find out more about Carrie and how to be in touch with her. And and I think I can speak for you, Carrie, to say just wishing everyone just that you have the best experience with getting to explore what's there for you in this message. And one thing that's sticking with me from listening to you, Carrie, is like go back to what you enjoyed as a child. For me, it was dance. I loved dancing as a child. I was also performing in little musicals and pageants as a kid. And for many years, I wasn't dancing when I was raising my daughter. And when I went back to dancing, it was huge for me. It is such a therapy for me to learn about myself and connecting with other humans. So just right, like just
Uh-huh.
encouraging everyone, maybe just to take away from this conversation, like what is it that you really enjoyed as a child, and what might be holding you back? What are the messages that are holding you back from choosing that? And if so, maybe Carrie's book can help you to take the next steps to solve that and help you get closer to finding your joy, as Carrie says.
I love that. Thank you so much for having me on. And I have a lovely free gift where I help people tune up their life. And so you can go to my website at carrierowan.com and grab that gift for yourself. And I so loved being on here with you. And I love the work that you do. So thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to How Humans Heal. If you liked this episode, leave a rating and a review. And for more resources, visit drdoni.com.